Hey, this is Shane from Green Hills Guitar Studio, and today we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're gonna look at this song by Tom Petty called "Only a Broken Heart." It's off the Wildflowers record, and when I first heard this song, I really just loved it immediately. It kind of has a Beatles thing to it, but it's just a really great song. So this is a real benefit to songwriters because we get to talk about triads, layering guitar parts, playing with others, and maybe not being so overwhelmed with thinking like now you have to be a guitar player. And I tell them it's more about learning how to think like a guitar player and not get overwhelmed with doing the Guitar Hero thing. Because oftentimes less is more, and this song is a great example of that. For my guitar students that are also learning how to explore the neck and move around a little bit and talk about like the cage system, triads, and coming up with guitar parts while they play with others, it requires having a knowledge of the neck, understanding inversions, understanding how to use a capo, understanding how to find these parts, utilizing some music theory and some triads. So these two approaches really come together, and that's really how I teach a lot of. There's a lot of stuff that can happen for singer-songwriters and guitar players that kind of is in the same area but gets missed in their learning. And for someone that wants to be a professional studio musician or play in a band and tour, this is also a great song because it takes them out of the headspace of being like a guitar nerd and thinking about their playing differently, because usually being in the studio isn't exactly what people think, and guitar players until they get in there and do it several times tend to think in terms of licks and solos. And as you like hear Bukovac and a lot of Nashville guys talk about all the time, when you're in the studio, you're layering guitar parts. You know, you might get a short solo, you might get an intro, but it's not all about the guitar part, the guitar solo. So this is a challenging song for a lot of guitar players that are pretty good lead players, because you have to really think about layering parts, the tone you're getting, and being pretty relentless with a rhythm part. Like playing something, simple isn't as simple as people think, especially if you have to do it for 4 minutes all the way through a song, go back and do it again, double it on the other side, put a capo on, come up with a new part quickly someplace else on the neck, do that throughout the song for 4 minutes. Like it requires some pretty intense concentration, and you're listening really to the click, to the band, and your nuances, you're under a microscope, so you can't vary as much as you think. So again, this is a great song for that, because guitar players have to learn how to think differently about how the instrument functions in a band with other guitar players, or in the studio, or when they're just working, with a singer-songwriter, how to come up with parts and think about their role differently and not just be holding out for the solo. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to lay down an acoustic part. And now in this, we're just talking about the solo section at the end of the song. So I made this little backing track where we can just kind of focus on that, because I want to present these other ideas as well. So it's towards the end of the song. There's this solo. I'm going to lay down an acoustic part on one side, and we're going to come back, and on the other side, I'm going to lay down another part, and I'm going to vary it just a little bit with how I strum it. And then we're going to lay down a third acoustic part, and then we're going to talk about the solo. And then we'll break into a couple electric parts, just kind of real supportive roles. So let me pull up the backing track here, and we'll get started with the first rhythm guitar part. Okay, so we have this backing track ready, and the chord progression is C, A minor, D minor, G. That'll repeat 4 times, and then it ends on a C chord. So you'll hear the click track, so you're gonna have to count, because there's actually a pickup that we're gonna do for the solo. So you'll hear the click track, I'll show you where we come in, Now this is where the theory thing comes in the natural number system. If we're in the key of C, which we are, this chord progression goes 1, minor 6, minor 2, 5. So in the key of C, that was a C, A minor, D minor, G, and then it ends on a C chord. And this is, in Nashville, you're reading natural number charts all the time. It's easier to change keys, and it's just like kind of the foundation of the way studios here work. So I would suggest, if you don't know music theory or the natural number system, it's okay, don't be overwhelmed by it. I made a course a while ago, you can check it out online. It's the major scale, basic music theory, and that will get you kind of where you need to be to understand this as a singer-songwriter in Nashville or a guitar player. And just on your own, this is a really handy tool, and you'll see why in a minute. So we're dealing with a 1, minor 6, minor 2, 5 in the key of C. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to play big full C chords, because kind of the trick to recording is layering these guitar parts. And on the recording, the original the Tom Petty recording, you'll hear some of this in there. There are two parts that are panned. On this part, I'm going to play my C, my A minor, my D minor, and my G. But when I strum, I'm going to strum everything down, and it's going to be, you know, right on top of the piano rhythm that you hear in the backing track. And this is kind of what's going on in the recording. There's not a piano in the outro solo in the backing track, but I'm going to play kind of that rhythm. I'm going to strum straight down, and I'm not going to strum full chords. I'm basically going to focus on strings 4, 3, and 2. So I might be playing a full C, and I might be playing this A minor, but basically what I'm going to do, I'm looking for this. I want this sound, right? And then for my G, I'm not doing this. So I'm keeping this really tight focus sound on those strings, and it'll look and sound like this. So I'm looking for these like nice little internal movements. This, if you can look at this other hand, these two notes stay the same. I bring in that, it turns into A minor, my D minor, that's my G. So that's a nice little compact sound. I'm going to play straight eighth notes, and notice I'm going to strum it all down, and I'm looking to keep it nice and even. All right, let's give this a try. All right, so keeping it really steady, really even, making the transitions so you get as little disruption as possible. So I'm going here. Notice I didn't lift my fingers. I'm not doing these big moves. I'm going here. My hand is spaced in a way where I can just put that finger down. Here, I'm just looking to put that. So I don't want these guys to move because it's going to show up in the microphone. All right. So we're looking for that. And my D minor, that's kind of a bigger move. So you're going to hear a little noise. I played it with my pinky. I do that a lot on my D minor. And then my G. And then these two fingers are free from my C. Because you you want to be pretty quiet with your hands. Okay, now I'm going to go back and we're going to do the other part on the other side, on the right side. And this time I'm going to do more of a strum, and I'm going to hit beats 2 and 4 because that's what's going on in the drum part. And I'm going to play kind of fuller chords. I want it to swing a little, and I want to get those accents on 2 and 4. Okay, so I'm going to play down here again. I have the same concerns about being quiet, smooth moves, and keeping things nice and even. But on this side, I'm going to do more of an alternate strumming thing like you would normally strum, and I'm going to accent 2 and 4. All right, let's try that. Okay, now with the part we just did, I was doing more of this strum pattern. Root, note, full strum, dun, dun. All right, so, and also I'm playing with the shoulder of the pick, not the pointed part. When I play acoustic, I do this a lot on electric too, but usually on acoustic I rotate the pick because it's a softer attack and it sounds better. And sometimes even I'll play parts like that with my thumb just to get a really warm, you know, just to change the sound a little bit. So I was playing with the side of the pick, and I was doing more of a full chord strum, where before on the C chord I was just focusing on this, now I'm doing this. But I have the same concerns with how I'm moving and getting in and out of the chords. I'm just trying to be as smooth as I can and not lift fingers I don't have to lift, because I'm just looking for a nice even thing. And again, this is really difficult to do. These are simple chords, but if you're playing in the studio on electric or acoustic and something needs to be really consistent and really even, your right hand can't drift, you can't be making those kind of noises. And the same with singer-songwriters. When you track live in the studio, if you're going to cut a vocal and you want a certain kind of feel, these are concerns that you want to address now, but it takes a different way of thinking about your playing. It's really common. Everybody does this. You get comfortable with these open position chords. You're like, I know these chords, I know how to play them, I can play all these strum patterns. But once you get under the microscope and you have to do this relentlessly, things start to pop out. And in the studio is not the place to kind of fall apart and crawl in your head, because it just gets worse. So try learning songs where you just have to be this one part all the way through, and pay attention to what's going on, record yourself, and really listen to these things, and kind of don't use it as an opportunity to pick your, beat yourself up, but pick your playing apart so that things are getting even and smooth. It'll really pay off later on. So let's go ahead and let's do a third acoustic part. We're going to use a capo, and then we're going to do the solo, and then we're going to jump into some electrics. So I'm going to grab a capo, I'm going to put it at the 5th fret. And what that means is now we have to still be in the key of C, but now we're not fingering the chords C, A minor, D minor, G. I'm capoed at the 5th fret because of like the whole caged thing. If you're a singer-songwriter and you just grab a capo and move it around, don't know what you're doing, that's really gonna bite you in the butt later on when you're trying to communicate with a band or you're on stage if you put the capo in the wrong place. So you have to know where you're going. So I have a course on the Cage system. I have 2 courses. You can check them out. They're really linear, They don't bounce around, so they're really good at this. But I'm just going to show you real quickly what we're looking for. I want to take a G chord, but remember we have to get it to C because that's the key of the song. So G, this is my root note. I'm putting it to 8th fret because that's a C. When we play a G chord, we have these an open fret behind it. So we need to keep that consistent. So that's how I knew my capo went in the 5th fret. So I'm going to capo the 5th fret. I'm going to get this pretty parallel there. I'm going to retune. You always want to retune when you grab a capo and move it around. Now remember, I said this is a 1 minor 6 minor 2 5. So now we have to think like we're playing in G. We're in the key of C, but now we're using different chord shapes. So G is our C chord. E minor is our minor 6 chord, or A minor. This A minor shape is now our D minor shape because it's this D minor bar chord. This D chord is our new G chord. So you can see how quickly you have to be able to look at a 1 minor 6 minor 2 5, know where to go, and knock out a part. So on this part, I'm going to retune before we start, but I'm going to kind of walk you through what I'm going to do here. I'm going to play kind of a different rhythm because remember we're layering these parts by using the capo. We're getting different inversions. We're getting higher on the sound on the guitar neck. We're getting a different sound on the D. I'm not going to do that. I don't want that 3rd on top, so I'm going to be really careful of what strings I hit. On the D, I'm going to hit like probably strings 4, 3, and 2. I don't want that. A D sus might sound weird in this progression, so I'm doing that on the G. Okay, so that's kind of the routine. It's going to be a different strum pattern and a different part of the neck. All right, so let's do that next. Okay, so our acoustic parts are done. Let's talk about some electric parts, how to layer some electric stuff. Now, this isn't in the original recording. I just wanted to talk about how you would approach this because it feeds into what we've been talking about all along, which is how to find these things on the neck, how to think about these parts and staying in your own lane while those other tracks are going on. So remember our chord progression is the A minor, D minor, G, C. So this is where the fretboard knowledge and the triads can really come into play. So, and this is where songwriters tend to just kind of tune out. So stick with me, songwriters. And guitar players, these shapes might be a little new to you, but it's worth knowing them. So let me break this down. We have an A minor up here at the 12th fret. I don't want to be that high. So I'm looking for some common tones. This is an A note, this is a C, this is an E. That makes up an A minor chord. This is A minor. C and E are common to my C chord. So I'm going to go from this shape, and I've got some tremolo on my electric guitar. So I'm going to go here. Now I'm looking for a C chord, which this is based off the C bar chord. Okay, so I'm playing A minor probably a lot differently than what you would do. I want this color. I want to be on strings 5, 4, and 3. So notice these groupings. That's my A minor. A, C, E. Here's my C chord. G, C, E. Okay? So I have to move from my A minor to my D minor. So what I want to do, the notes in a D chord are D, F, A. I want to keep this A common between the A minor and the D minor, common tone. So I'm looking for this. That's my G chord, G, D, G. And I'm also going to do this G, B, D. That's the one chord I'm going to do different. I'm going to go low one time, go high. And by low and high, I mean this. Okay, so why does all this matter? Remember how this all started at the beginning with these parts having their own place in the mix. If you're a singer-songwriter playing with your friend that's a songwriter and you're going to accompany them, you want to be able to find different parts on different parts of the neck, whether using a capo, like the cage system, triads, and triads on top 3 strings, next three, like you want to start working on learning the neck so you can find this stuff, because you're going to use it. It's going to be very beneficial, and it's not about just playing lead guitar. In a co-write, in the studio, if you want to play your own guitar parts or you want to layer a new part, all this stuff kind of is the same. So don't think of it as like lead guitar, rhythm guitar. This area is really common between both creative singer-songwriters or guitar players that don't write and are just contributing parts. So let me review this again, and then I'll put these will be in the diagram too with the PDFs. I'm going to make one more sheet to add where I lay out these chords. So A minor, D minor, G, C. So why does this work? My A, C, E, A stays the same, the C goes up to a D, the E goes up to an F. A goes down to G, my G, B, D, G stays the same, B goes up to C, D goes up to E. So you get this internal movement of lines of the notes that's going to create this counterpoint, and I'm playing on these 3 strings consistently because I want that color. I want the sound of those 3 strings. And I just happen to be using tremolo because it's a really nice warm sound. So don't get too caught up in the theory. Don't worry too much about it. You're going to learn as you go. Just try to think more in terms of concepts, string groupings, color, high, low. That guy's playing, I'm going to play when he's not playing. More broad concepts. And if you don't know these chords, just look at the PDF, learn the chords, practice this movement, you'll hear the changes, and you'll get to walk away with some new chords that are going to be great for you to use down the road. So please don't get overwhelmed by the information. I'm just trying to get you to understand the concepts about how guitar players think in studio, when they're working with songwriters, when they're working with other guitar players. And also some of the problems that songwriters have when they don't understand the neck, they don't have these skills. So if you're playing at a writer's night in Nashville and someone asks you to play with them, you don't panic. Or if someone says, hey, you want to play some licks on this song? You don't freak out. You have some options with this stuff. Okay, so let's jump in and let's add this part to the track. All right, so let's go ahead and add this last guitar part. I'm going to grab a different guitar, tune it up, and walk you through that one. So let's do that one next. Okay, now a second ago I was talking about, playing high, playing low, playing on groups of 3 strings, playing with the capo. So this is probably going to be the simplest part that we do, but it's going to be super effective because I'm going to play low, I'm going to do it on electric guitar, and I'm going to use this Bigsby just to kind of give it a little bit of movement. So remember in the first acoustic part we did, I played it really pretty straight and I down-picked everything and I focused on just 3 strings. So that was that part just straight. That was that guy's lane. The next part I did was almost exactly the same part, but I did more of an alternate strum and I accented beats 2 and 4. So with this guitar, I'm just going to strum on beat 1 and let it ring. And I want to create a little bit of movement, so I'm going to use the Bigsby. If you don't have an electric with a Bigsby, just hitting a clean chord and letting it ring really adds a lot to a track. It's really simple, and this is one of those things where people can really try to overdo it and overthink. When you're layering parts like this, you don't want to build up all these really complex parts. You want the track to breathe. You want different tones. You want to fill up the space EQ-wise nice and evenly. You don't want a lot of build up. And you want different movement. So with this guitar, I'm just going to play on beat 1 of every chord change. And if you remember with the acoustic 3 we did, where I capoed at the 5th fret, I played on beats 1 and then 4 before the chord changed again. So it's 1 and 4. This is just beat 1. And how did I come up with playing on 1 and 4 on that acoustic track? Well, I just kind of played along with the recording and thought, what feels right? What is there? What's something I can add that makes the track move a little bit, but doesn't take over and doesn't get busy? So that's my thinking here. So again, we're just talking big concepts so that you can start thinking about this and be more willing to try some of these things in the future. Don't be afraid to be simple with your guitar playing. It's really, really effective. If you're a songwriter, don't be afraid to stretch out and start goofing around with either the major scale, the minor scale. In this instance, it was a minor pentatonic scale. And if you can find the root note, you can start playing around with some melodic ideas in whatever key you're working in. You're going to come up with something. That's the spirit. Be creative, have fun. Don't feel like you have to come up with the right part right away. Crawl inside of a track and play around. That's why I use this track. I didn't want to just duplicate everything on the Tom Petty song. I wanted to use it as a blueprint to show you what other options you have and kind of how to start thinking about this stuff, and be willing to jump in songs by your favorite artists and play along. Try to come up with a part. Pick a lane and stay there and do that throughout the song. You'll get so much better faster, and you'll start to hear things in recordings that you didn't find before. So let's knock out this part, and then we might add one more. So we're going to do this low part. I'm going to use the Bigsby. Here we go. Now, if you can hear the kind of flute sounding thing that's going on in the backing track, those are like Mellotron flutes. You've heard those in Strawberry Fields Forever. Mellotron is a really great sound. That's a really cool sound, and they're kind of this breathy, airy, and they're not quite in tune all the time. So this part, working with that part where you get this fluctuation in pitch And you get this kind of movement in the track, so everything's not static. That's why it works really well. So hopefully what you're taking away from this too is how to be a more active listener and really take time to figure out what's going on in a track. I still love listening to just one side of a recording and seeing what's going on over there. When do things enter? When do they go away? And then do it again on the other side. It's just a lot of fun. You find stuff in recordings that are really amazing parts that don't jump out, but without them, the track would just not be as good, not as cool. So this guitar was some movement, some pitch fluctuation, really simple against those Mellotron flutes, which were really simple as well. It's just a static sound and then they change with the chord, but there's fluctuation in their part because that's the nature of that instrument, the Mellotron. And the pitch fluctuation and how it kind of sits in the track and kind of throbs a little bit, but it's not distracting. That was the idea behind that. So let's go ahead and add, I want to try one more part on this guitar, and we're going to do something higher up the neck. Okay, so let me walk you through what I'm thinking for this last guitar part. We just did something low. I want to do something really high, the highest part we've done yet. So I'm going to use the same guitar. I'm going to put it on a different pickup because I want a different tone, and I'm going to play on a different grouping of 3 strings. So I'm going to do everything with this A minor chord, the D minor, the G, and the C. I'm doing everything on strings 2, 3, and 4. A minor is going to be A, C, E. So we're taking this A minor chord, move it up an octave. I know my next chord is D minor, so I'm going D, F, F, A, D, D, F, A. And then we have a G chord, which is part of this G chord. And then we have E, G, C. So just like that blue guitar part we did with the tremolo, where I was concerned about these common tones and this internal movement, that's what I'm looking for here. With my A minor, you can see that this E moves up to an F, the A stays the same, the C moves up to a D, so it's from this to this, and then the G chord, and then the C chord. So if you don't know the neck, if you're getting kind of freaked out by the theory, don't worry about any of that. Learn these chord shapes. I know it'll be harder on acoustic if you don't have a cutaway, but you can take them down an octave. Here's your A minor. Here's that D that we were talking about, that D minor. G would just be these 3 strings open, and then that C, okay? So if it's too hard for you to play up here on an acoustic, learn the shapes, but just move them down an octave. Okay, let's lay this part down. On the other part we did low, I had this pickup selector all the way down because I wanted that brighter sound. Remember, I was playing those big full chords. So pull it up. I'm going to use the Bigsby again, but I want a little more movement, so I'm going to use the Bigsby a little bit faster. I know all this sounds like kind of like obsessive weird stuff, but these are the things that go on in tracks that really make a big difference, so things just don't all sound the same all the way through. Notice how much we've played on different parts of the neck using capos, like just trying to create different sounds. I would encourage you to be interested in coming up with a part that you can repeat through the song and a sound that you can use, if not through the whole song, at least in sections, like a chorus or a pre-chorus. Like, think in terms of sections, sound, and color, and you'll be really surprised at what kind of parts you come up with. And don't be afraid to be simple. Okay, so let's do this last part. Okay, so I hope this approach has made you kind of rethink about the way that you either approach the guitar as a singer-songwriter or the way that you approach the guitar as a guitarist that is trying to figure out how to layer parts, and maybe just give you a little different approach and open some things up to you. You have more options than you think you do, and you don't have to be a burner Jedi guitar player to do this kind of stuff. As you could see, it was nothing like really over the top. It was just parts spread across the neck. But what you do have to know is where you are on the neck, how to use a capo, understand how the chord shapes change up the neck, which is kind of the cage thing, the capo thing, or the triad thing. It doesn't matter how you see it. It's the same fundamental concepts. So have fun with the track. Listen to the original Tom Petty recording, and you'll hear some of this stuff that we talked about going on in the track, especially with the acoustic parts and what goes on at the solo at the end. So have fun and take your time with it and try these concepts out on other songs. Take these approaches that we did on this song and try to funnel them into other music that you'd like to listen to or that you would like to write. My hope is this would free you up to be a little more creative and more willing to explore the guitar neck, and maybe get over some hang-ups or some difficulties that you've had with your approaches to learning the guitar. And any of this information that you want, the PDFs, the backing track, it can all be found in the All Access library. It's only $10 a month. You get access to all the courses, everything for $10 a month. If you're ever in Nashville, you're coming here for a visit, and you want to hop into the studio for some guitar lessons with, me, Ryan, or Sam, voice, music theory, piano, ukulele, we'd be happy to help you out. If you're interested in online lessons, we have students all over the world, all over the United States, so we could help you out there. We also teach songwriting and creativity as well. So we'd be happy to help you. Sign up for our newsletter. And the thing I always forget that I'm so bad about is please hit the like button and the subscribe button. I know it sounds really lame, but it just helps people find us. It helps the algorithm figure out how to steer people to this information. So I'll catch you next time. Have fun.